Thank you for joining us for this message from More Life Church, where we exist to love God, to love people, and to reach a region for Jesus and to make a difference for generations to come. Now, to learn more about how we're reaching our community and how you can partner with us and learn how God has uniquely designed you, check out Grow Steps on Demand by visiting morelifechurch.com/growsteps or by downloading our app today. But for now, enjoy today's message.
I've titled today's message, The Gift of Clarity, A Tale of Two Families. So we're going to talk about dysfunctional and healthy families. We're going to talk about both. And I want to just start by asking all of us a question before we go further. 3 questions, actually, okay? I don't want to go back over that ground again about lives are messy. You'll already see that pretty quickly. Your life is messy, my life is messy, or you know someone's life who is messy, not in a judgmental way, but just in an observational way. You're like, wow, they're really going through it, especially over these last 18 to 20 months. Guys, can I just say something? I got to ask you to forgive me. I said something in the beginning of the pandemic that I should have been saying more often, and I want to reiterate this, and I'm going to bring it to mind now, that we cannot allow a physical health threat to become a mental health catastrophe. And I'm seeing every day young people literally calling our office, high school, middle school students, that doctors are prescribing them antidepressants. I'm not against medication, but listen, I got to tell you something, that there's a root to that situation that's going on in their life. Right? To all of us, that this whole thing we've been so preoccupied with the physical health that we've let go of our soul and our mental and emotional well-being. And I want to reclaim that, especially during this holiday season, because I'm going to tell you right now, coming up against Thanksgiving and Christmas, if your life is anything like mine, you are going to have very few physical health threats. You're going to have emotional and mental health threats. From a crazy relative, some cousin, some wild child that decides to throw a fit the morning you're supposed to go to grandma and grandpa's house for Christmas Day. Come on, somebody. I know I'm in the right room. Don't look at me in that tone of voice. You know, I know who I'm talking to. Angel and I have been there. We've done it. Some of our best fights have been right before we went to somebody's house for a big celebration. We're supposed to be having fun, and all this happens. I want you to just ask yourself 3 questions real quick before we get on, and I want to bring clarity. First one is about our church, and this is for all of us to answer. Does our church have a culture that allows for authenticity and openness about our messy lives? I hope it's yes. But if we're not there yet, and I suppose I'm asking the question because as the pastor I'm saying, it's going to get worse before it gets better. Now you might be born again, and you might be washed by the blood, and you may be sanctified and filled with the Holy Ghost, and your life is going good, and you've got some good things going on in your life. But I'm going to tell you something, that this church is going to continue to pray for and draw those who need Jesus. And those who need Jesus are as messy as you were before you found him. They are. And can I say this to you? Some of us who are in Christ don't have it as together as we think we do. And there's a little bit of self-righteousness that lives on the inside of us. And I'm saying, let's go up to a higher level. And when the messy comes in, I love the picture of Jesus with the woman who was caught in the act of adultery. I love that image. I've always wondered this, and I say it every time I mention it. How in the world did the woman commit adultery by herself? Takes 2 to tango. This is a setup. The woman's down in the dirt, and we see Jesus kneel to approach her and to set her free, to empower her, and to liberate her. Here's what I want to say about that story is, listen, when people are in the dirt, Jesus gets down in the dirt and mess with them. He's not afraid of getting messy and even being lumped in with their situation. And I want to encourage you as a Christ follower, don't be afraid to get in the mess. Forget about the reputation and go after the hurt and the brokenness that's inside of humanity. Never lose sight of the brokenness that's in humanity. Second question. As you're grappling through these issues yourself, what's your heart condition? Do you have a tender heart? Or do you have a hard-heartedness that's grabbed your life? Third question. What can you do today to model a healthy attitude in your family and in the face of the mess and the dysfunction? Let me say this. I'm going to get to the Bible verse in just a moment. Some of you in here have had the extreme blessing of being raised by a healthy family. And so some of the things that I'm going to talk about today, when I talk about dysfunction, you're not going to be able to get your mind around because you're like, that wasn't my experience. I still want you to learn, take note, and take notes because this will help you to identify the needs of brokenness inside of human hearts. Second, if you identify with this either in your experience and upbringing, or it identifies some things that are going on in your family right now, I want you to know up front, there's hope and there's healing, and we serve a God who can transform our hearts, lives, and families. So there's hope. You don't have to stay stuck. Maybe you identify the dysfunction of the past. Maybe you grew up in some of these scenarios and your past is still a part of your present. I want to say something. I want to say this to you. Your past has an expiration date, and you determine that expiration date. And I hope for some of you, you determine the expiration date is today, and you'll walk free. So look at this verse in Proverbs chapter 11, verse 29. A very interesting proverb. Whoever brings ruin on their family will inherit only the wind, and the fool will be the servant to the wise. So whoever brings ruin on their family, they give their family nothing. You've heard me say this if you've been on a trajectory with us for any length of time, that part of our assignment, right, quite simply in Christ, is to receive the good that we've received from Christ, to receive that good, to receive that blessing, to receive that strength, to receive that power, to receive that grace, to receive that mercy, and pass it on. This is saying that there are tendencies within a family that will ruin a family. There are dysfunctional traits that will ruin, and then all of your family's inheritance is like trying to grab the wind. So it's nothing. So to define it, McGraw-Hill Dictionary of Modern Medicine describes dysfunction this way. Now let me just make a note. You might find connection with one or more of these traits in your family from time to time. That doesn't mean your family's dysfunctional. The defining moment here is if you allow it to be a pattern, do nothing to address it and overcome it. You allow it to become a way of life. That's when it becomes dysfunctional. And so here is the definition. You might want to take a photo of this because it's rather lengthy. You probably won't be able to write it down or watch it back. A family, here's dysfunctional family, a family with multiple internal conflicts. What's an internal conflict? Sibling rivalry, parent-child conflict, domestic violence, mental illness, or external conflicts, alcoholism, drug abuse, extramarital affairs, gambling. You have one or more of these internal or external conflicts that affect the basic needs of the family unit. Listen, there are multiple negative influences, and this is the key, they affect the needs being met in your life. This is what separates families with minor dysfunction from major dysfunction. So let me give you a few thoughts. The rest of this message is probably a thinking message, not a shouting and amening message. You're free to do any of those things if you like, but I just really want to teach you for a few minutes, and I think this will be helpful to you. So a dysfunctional family is a place where a variety of healthy family principles are violated, resulting and chronic problems. So what are the healthy principles that are violated in a dysfunctional family? You experience negative things like disconnection, loss of freedom, pain. Your past isn't allowed to be healed, and imperfections are not tolerated. Perfectionistic approach, and perfection is the expectation in a dysfunctional family. It's heavy on authority, low on connection. There is a lot of confusion and loss, secrecy, and unresolved conflict is the rule. A dysfunctional family is a place where effort makes things worse. It's a I can never live up kind of environment. I can never live up and I can never satisfy. This is dysfunctional. This is the opposite of the heart of God. A dysfunctional family is a place where values are not positive. They're not upheld and they're not enforced. So we get rigid. There is gaslighting. There is pain involved by the devaluing of your emotions. If you've ever had your emotions invalidated, you are experiencing a dysfunction. What do I mean by that? When you say, I feel such and such way, and someone dismisses that and says, that's not important. We should never tolerate someone invalidating our emotions. Now, all of our emotions may not be healthy. We may need to be helped, mentored, pastored, or parented through those unhealthy emotions. But at the same time, guys, listen, we feel what we feel, right? We feel what we feel. And there's comparison involved. And so the next one, I just want to paint this picture really quickly. And it's a place where hurt and negative experience is greater than feeling good, safe, or nourished. In other words, the negative experiences that you have outweigh the positive experiences you have in your family. Take a time out. Take a big deep breath in and let it out. Anybody thoroughly depressed yet? Write down the 3 rules of a dysfunctional family, if you would, if you're taking notes. Number 1, here are the 3 rules of a dysfunctional family. Don't trust, don't talk, and don't feel. This is dysfunctional. Don't trust, don't talk, don't feel. I'm going to step on some toes, but the truth will make you free. Don't forget, Jesus said you'll know the truth, and the truth will make you free. It might tick you off first, but eventually it'll make you free. Many of us grew up in a home where the dinner table rules were, children are better seen than, you went to the same seminar I did. I think to a degree that's dysfunctional. It basically trains the child, and this is what I was up against. No one did it on purpose. Listen, there are well-meaning people who, through their own lack of understanding, just simply make mistakes. Can I just take the pressure off of every parent and every grandparent? Sooner or later, you mess up your kids. It's true. You mess them up. You do something, and I promise you, if you have young children, I know there's a lot of people with young children here, there will come a day and time when they're going to be 16, 17, 18 years old, and they're going to tell you all the ways in which you ruined their childhood. Right? So well-meaning people. But this is what this created in me. Don't trust, don't talk, don't feel. I basically, maybe you've done this. This is what it results in. I basically was given the message, Josh, your thoughts don't matter. Keep your thoughts to yourself. Keep your mouth shut. That's dysfunctional. Because at some point in time, if you train your child or your loved one that way, what if God has placed inside of them an assignment to speak up, and you were accidentally used by the enemy to keep them suppressed? It's dysfunctional. Don't trust, don't talk, don't feel. Let me summarize a dysfunctional family. A dysfunctional family, this is just my summary. A dysfunctional family is a place you move away from. Not physically necessarily, but maybe. It is something that you're repelled by. You're not drawn into. So watch this verse, because now we're going to shift gears and we're going to watch the healthy side of it. And these have been difficult to hear. Some of you are identifying with them. And you're like, okay, great, Josh. This has gone on, or I'm the product of this. What do I do? Or someone says, I can't believe this actually happens. Can I just tell you this right now? Nearly 20 years of interacting with families. I wished I would have preached this message 20 years ago, but I didn't have the wisdom and understanding to do it then. This summarizes, it took me 17 years to find language for this, of what I've watched families endure. So what do? We turn it. Watch this verse. I love this verse. Maybe your family was full of scoundrels. Your mom and dad were, dysfunctional people and critical. Psalm 27:10 says this, though my father and mother forsake me, just because my mom and dad messed me up does not place a limitation on my life. Look at the rest of this verse. Though my father and mother forsake me, the Lord will receive me. That's really good news. That even though our parents and our families got it wrong, we have a higher authority that has been sent to redeem our circumstance and our situation. And we serve a God. I'm here to tell you the good news that Jesus can redeem and transform any family, any past situation, and any past pain. He knows how we feel, and we're going to see that later. And he endured, and he brought healing and freedom to all of us. It's good news. I hesitate to share this because it's quite graphic, but I watched dysfunction on my mother's side of the family. My grandfather on my mother's side was a terribly violent man. Now, if I were to go into the history of that, you would understand why he was the way that he was, which doesn't excuse it, but at least gives understanding. Let me show you how dysfunctional this was. This is so extreme. My mother's younger sister, just below her, name is Mary. Mary has been to our church and been a very vital part of my family's life since my mom passed away. My Aunt Mary was pregnant as a teenager. She got pregnant out of wedlock. My mother's family immigrated to this country from Italy. So I'm a first generation American born in the United States on my mother's side. And so I watched some things and was told stories. Obviously, I wasn't there when my aunt was 16, but she finally got the courage to tell my grandfather that she was expecting. This was my grandfather's response. He got a shotgun and put it in her mouth. Why do I say that? Because my aunt, if anyone could have, that's abuse. That's extreme dysfunction. That's criminal, ladies and gentlemen. That is wrong and evil, and there's no excuse for it. But I'm telling you this story because I watched God perform this verse in my aunt's life and so many other people's lives. My mother led my aunt to the Lord. My aunt and uncle, Mark and Mary, now are on fire for God. They pastor a wonderful church in Central Florida. And God said, even though your parents forsook you, I am going to receive you and I'm going to redeem you. So I don't know what your story is, but I want you to know there is hope in the room. There's hope in the room. So what is family? It's complex, right? What's a healthy family? I'm just going to say it this way. If you're taking notes, it'd be a good thing to write down. What is family? It's the place where you feel safe, where you're nourished, and you are grown. Emotional and relational needs are met in this place. Life is experienced together. You work, you love, you struggle. You share the struggles and the victories alike, and you fight together. It's where kids are developed into maturity. I've used this language. Family is where you turn children and make them go from an asset to a liability. You mature them. Values, beliefs, principles, faith is taught and passed on. Education is overseen and provided. In the family, I'm gonna get off script for a moment. There are many teachers in the room, and I think they'll be the most excited about this, but I just want to say something, that we have heaped upon our education system, a broken system, extra responsibilities that they were never designed to carry the weight of. What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is because families are dysfunctional, we force our school systems to have to teach things about family and values that they do not want to teach, and quite frankly, and with all due respect, they are not qualified to teach. And what I need us to understand is the issue with a broken educational system is the result of families not accepting responsibility and expecting someone else to raise their children for them. And in my estimation, this needs to stop. And our church family and many, many others need to say, we are the main responsible party for educating and raising our children, and we will not delegate that to someone else. Look, they're good at reading, writing, and arithmetic. But when it comes to your values, this is the place where you grow them. Some of y'all getting so upset about different issues being taught in the school. I think we get upset because we know that means we have hard work to do to combat that. Now, if we can stop it, then you can go ahead and try to stop it. But I'm going to tell you right now, there is no way on God's green creation that any coach, teacher, administrator, or principal, no matter how wonderful or how dysfunctional they are, either way, it makes me no difference. They will not have more influence in my child's life than I will. And I want some parents to just approach their upbringing of children with that same posture and attitude. I am the main influencer in my child's house, end of story. I mean, like, let's go after this and say, I'm going to be the one that does that. In our home is where children are socialized. Oh, man. If your kids have social issues, they might have learned it from you. If you awkward, they might be awkward. And we all have a sense of awkward. Don't get me wrong. But listen, like, we had 4 kids. They had no choice but to be socialized. Like, we had a play date every morning when they woke up. Like, we built it into the system. I'm not advocating having more kids, but I'm saying this is where they learn it. This is where they learn it. Norms are established and learned in the family. Let me keep moving on because I think y'all get my point. A family, this might be the most important thing. One of the 2 most important things. The second most is coming up in a minute. A family is a collection of safe people. And I'm going to outline what that means. I'm going to give you 3 places. Number 1, a family is my safe place. This is where connectedness happens, where I feel connected to other human beings. The second one is it's my empowered place. So it's a place where you feel connectedness, but it's also where you feel separateness. What do I mean by that? A family at some point multiplies into other families. And there should be a sense of freedom built in as your children grow and mature, where they feel a sense of freedom, independence, where they have some autonomy, where there is some self-determination, where you've invested in them to the point where you can't do any better than what you've already done, and now they have to go out into the real world and start making their own decisions. For some of you with toddlers and early age kids, listen, don't ignore me on this because now is the time to build this in to them. I've said over and over the years that between the ages of 2 and 6, depending on the child, is what some of the most important times to train them and get them ready for what's next. This young man sitting on the front row, that is our youngest son. This poor kid, he got a spanking every day from the ages of 2 to 4, literally every day. Every day. You can feel sorry for him if you want to, but he's the young man that he is because we brought correction and discipline in a healthy way. In a healthy way. For all the anti-spanking folks that may be listening, I get it. I understand. I understand where you're coming from. But all the psychologists in the world do not undo what the Word of God teaches. And you have to make a decision if the Word of God is the final authority in your life or not. Now, let me tell you this difference. Watch this. Never discipline your child when you're angry. That's abuse. Never. And discipline and correction is supposed to hurt. So what will get their attention the most may not be a spanking. In today's culture, you know what it might be? They might be the most hurt and caused to be in pain if you take away a device. Take it away, honey. Oh, that's really good preaching right there, I'm telling you right now. Some of you just don't have the guts to do it. I know. Separateness. Why? Because it's where limits are enforced. As kids age, choices that they make are to be respected with consequences when that's the case. Freedom to choose. But listen to me very carefully. The goal of a healthy family is to get to the place where no is a word that's used without psychological consequences. What do I mean by that? This is the maybe most important thing I'm going to say. Love isn't a currency that should be weaponized. Love isn't a currency that should be weaponized. What do I mean by that? In healthy families, you shouldn't get paid more or less love because of the choices that you make for yourself. Kids are going to get it wrong. Parents are going to get it wrong. Grace is the overriding principle. The third thing for a healthy family is my real place. It's where genuineness is. Pain and imperfections are able to be metabolized. They're able to be processed. Failure isn't fatal, and failure isn't final. It's a place where you can be you. In closing, as I wrap this up, a healthy family is a place you want to move towards. And a dysfunctional family is a place you want to stay away from. It's going to get real here in just a second. This is the reason why some of you are not looking forward to Thanksgiving and Christmas with your family. I'm telling you the truth, aren't I? Why am I saying it to you? Because we've got to get language for it. And once we have language for it, then we can take steps of recovery and health. And that's where I want to end. Here's the question. I grew up in a messed up family. Maybe this is you. And I'm now repeating many patterns from the past. What do I do? What do I do? You identify which patterns need to be changed. Then you focus on the action steps that will enable you to move forward toward emotional health and healing. Let me break it down for you. 3 things that you move closer toward. You ready? You move closer to God, you move closer to self, and you move closer to others. This is healthy. This is emotionally healthy spirituality. In order, growing closer to God. Growing closer to God. Growing closer to self. That might sound odd to you, but how much self-awareness and knowing and connection do you have with who God's made you to be? And how much are you okay with who you are? Or how much of your life, from young, middle-aged to older, is spent chasing other people's approval? And how much of our time has been wasted by trying to get other people's permission to be what God has created us to be? See, a healthy family calls that out. A dysfunctional one tries to repress and suppress and say, no, we're not comfortable with that you. Because it's so different. 3 things, 3 action steps you can take. And I don't have time to finish it. I'm out of time. But I want to give you 3 things. that you can think about. And next time we're together, I'm going to continue this and talk about boundaries. Healthy boundaries create healthy family. So those three things, the answer to that question, what are the patterns? What are the steps? Number one, you can create structures which build goodness. What's that mean? Family meetings, family dinners, family practices of consistency, creating traditions. Let me get through it. I'm going to come back to it. Create real generational impact. And number three, create open systems. That's complex. I don't have time to get into all of it. So something we've done recently as a family is we've initiated Sunday dinner. And it was my idea, and our kids came to us. And this is where a healthy family can take the criticism from kids and make adjustments. Listen, can I just tell you something? Some of the best ideas our family has ever had didn't come from me and didn't come from Angela. They came from our kids. An insecure parent says, oh, what does that kid know? Well, they might know a lot. They might know more than you. That's my goal, is to get my kids to a place where they know more than me and I can cruise. I got 4 kids. I'm raising them up. One of these years, I'm expecting to open a real nice watch at Christmas time. I mean, like real nice. Like one that I got to get over embarrassment to wear because it's that nice. There you go. But they brought a situation to us, or a thought to us, and they all felt the same way. We wished we had had more family dinners growing up. That's what they said. I heard them. So for the last few Sundays, we've hosted family dinner. Last weekend, we had family dinner, and we watched the Adele concert and the Adele interview, because that's what we wanted to do. This weekend, we're having meatloaf and mashed potatoes, and we're going to put up the tree and decorate it. We're just, listen, it's not complicated. It just takes thought and effort and intentionality. That's the word I've been searching for the last 36 minutes. Intentionality. Like, to be intentional about this, not let it happen on accident, right? Create real generational impact. Just a quick story. Y'all still doing okay? Okay. So my son and daughter-in-law came over yesterday to watch the football game, and they were talking about that they were going to put up their Christmas tree the day after Thanksgiving. And I said, well, who's invited to that? And they're like, nobody. So watch. A dysfunctional response is to try to push my way in and control and get in there, because I like to be there. But you know what's happening? I'm leaving space for real generational impact. This is a new family. I'm respecting the new family that came from us and saying, you got new traditions, you set the tone, this is what you want to do, this is your very first Christmas tree. I think it's awesome. I'm going to let you have space to do all that, and whatever like, that's their tradition. Listen, don't get mad when your kids put up boundaries. As they're adults, we're talking about, I know I've talked about several different things, and you might not be able to flex with me on it. But once they're on these kids are, they're old enough to be married, they own their own home, they're paying their own bills. Bless God, they can decide if they want to put a Christmas tree up with or without mom and dad. Let me show you, I want to finish with Jesus' words. And something that I believe will add value to you. Then Jesus' mother and brothers arrived. So Jesus is teaching. His mom and his brothers get there, and they're standing outside. There's a lot of attitude and stuff going on here. You just got to sort through it. They're standing outside. Mom and brothers are standing outside, and they send someone in. This is kind of a level of dysfunction. It's weird. They're not communicating with each other. They send someone in to call him. And a crowd was sitting around him, and they told him, your mother and brothers are outside looking for you. Look at Jesus' response. Who are my mother and my brothers? Don't interpret this religiously. Mary and her stretch marks got ticked off. I carried this child, went through the pain and controversy of a virgin birth, and he gonna say, who is my mother and who is my brothers? I changed the boy's diaper. Don't think she didn't get mama bear and angry. But Jesus doesn't care in a healthy way. Who are my mother and who are my brothers? He asked. Then he looked at those seated in a circle around him and said, here are my mother and my brothers. Watch this. Whoever does God's will is my brother and my sister and my mother. Whoever desires to do the will of God. This may be the thing internally you get most excited about today. Your family is more than biological. It's more than biological. It involves biology, but listen, some of you have biological family. I hate to say this, but it's the truth. They're just not safe. And what I want you to know is you've stepped into an environment where we are cultivating an environment of safe, where you can be messy. Sure, I'm sure there's areas of dysfunction, but our goal is health. And I want you to know that Jesus can transform any family.
Thanks again for joining us for this message from More Life Church. Now, if this message spoke to you, we would love for you to share it with someone you think could use it. And finally, if you would like to partner with us financially, you can do that by visiting morelifechurch.com/give. Now have an amazing day.